Hello, we're back from lunch recess. The time is 1:36, and we are going to pick up with agenda item 12B, but I'd like to invite a roll call to make sure our members are present, please.
Alicia Benaman.
I am here.
Katarina Ellaby. Katarina Ellaby.
Yeah. And Northport.
Let's go down the roll call.
Dale Armstrong.
No, it's a fake.
Present.
Thank you.
Sold that
Jesus Mingus.
Present.
Jonathan Irvin.
All right. Yeah.
Present.
So Jason, you need anything else from us?
Tanya McMillian.
Present.
I'm going to go back to Katarina Ellaby.
Present.
Thank you, Katarina. And Daniel Drummer is absent. All members are present with the exception of Daniel Drummer. Board has a quorum.
Thank you. And agenda item 12B.
We have Heather Hoganson, who is our regulations attorney from DCA, and I see her on camera, and I will just hand off to her. You're muted, Heather. So we're still not hearing. Okay, I show you as being muted now. If you try it one more time and come off mute. No audio.
Just want to call in.
She's in the process of doing that right now. While she's calling in, I'm just going to kind of sub in for a second. So for agenda item 12B, where we had discussion of possible board action regarding the guidelines for discipline, it's a bit of a boilerplate. In case anything did come up, we could bring it to the board. It looks like everything's going smooth sailing with that, so we're still waiting to hear back, as kind of we talked about in the regulations report. So really, we'll be discussing or concentrating on item C. And so if the facilitator wants to bring up the first attachment for 12C, which is the actual proposed language, we can bring that up on the screen, and that way when Heather gets here, when we get her audio, she can just pick up at that point. And I'll just try to fill in some of the silence until we get Heather on.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is there a version with track changes, or how do we know how this has changed?
So the materials that are presented on the screen right now are the final, but what members were provided in the email or in Word, and so you can still see the track changes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But for simplicity's sake and just for displaying the content to the public of what the end proposal was, we provided this kind of final track changes accepted. But always open to the conversation of what's changed from the last time you've seen the language.
Yeah.
But just to give kind of some context and where these changes came from. So we've made it to the second tier level of DCA review. There were some issues identified about the authoritative statute and what was necessary or what would be required for OAL review for approval. As an example, 464 says the board shall promulgate through regulation and shall include, and it lists some very specific things. And where they were kind of covered in our old language, they weren't provided in the same outline. They weren't as easy to interpret, apparently. And so DCA just kind of went through them, cleaned them up a little bit to what they think would be a quicker, a much easier approval through an OAL attorney. That way we don't have any unnecessary static later in the process. And I'm looking at, it looks like maybe Heather still has no audio.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Oh, good. I'll stop talking.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't want to interrupt your flow. You're doing so well. So sorry about that. It seems like whenever I switch over to Teams while WebEx is on, it messes with the speaker. So sorry about that. So good afternoon. I am Regulatory Counsel Heather Klein-Hogenson, and I am bringing this proposal to you to create 2 new forms which will allow licensees to either place their licenses in retired status or to restore a retired license to active within 5 years retirement. And the revised regulation text matches that. It also specifies that the application fee will be $100, which was determined in consultation with the budget office based on the actual cost to process the application. So that part is new. As Jason was saying, we have revised the text to mirror the enabling statute more closely, and I'm available for any specific questions. The text also specifies that the retired licenses do not have to meet continuing competency requirements, and that there is a 5-year window to restore a license before having to submit a new initial license application. And that mirrors the board's inactive license status. And finally, this now is going to create a new Article 1.5 for license status regulations. And we recommend the number placement now to be 1399.18 as shown on your screen, rather than the previous draft, which had it as 1399.14.1. So I do have a proposed motion if you're interested, or if you want to talk about any questions you may have first, I'm happy to do that. If you do want to move this rulemaking forward, as you see on the screen and with the 2 accompanying forms that I see were available for download on the WebEx, I would recommend the following motion. Approve the proposed regulatory changes and direct the executive officer to take all steps necessary to reinitiate the rulemaking process. Authorize the executive officer to make any technical or non-substantive changes to the rulemaking package. Notice the proposed text for a 45-day comment period. And if no adverse comments are received and no hearing is requested, adopt the proposed regulatory changes and delegate to the executive officer the completion of the rulemaking file.
Any board member comment, discussion, motion? Any statement from staff?
Yes, thank you. Just to kind of address the proverbial elephant in the room, one, I would apologize to the members for kind of such short notice and turnaround. You were just given the materials this morning. We in concert with DCA staff, literally just finished the package yesterday afternoon. But I will tell you that I am in agreement with the creation of the new article. That in particular was one of the things that staff came up with to try and make the code a little bit more consistent and flow better for the end user. And with that comes a new numeration. But I think that's probably the smallest aspect of the change. It is essentially a whole new code. While the content is the same, a lot of the verbiage has changed. A lot of the language has changed. So if you are privy to and have in front of you like the track changes form for members, where of the language as you saw it the last time we discussed it and what you see in front of you now. A lot of it is just legal compliance, right? It's the advice of counsel that this is what it would need to be defensible, but also to receive approval from an OAL attorney's review. And in looking at it and spending a lot of time with counsel yesterday and staff, Elsa and I both going back and forth, still see this as being operational in the sense that it's functional. It does everything that we need it to do. It allows us to start issuing retired licenses again for those that need it, while still recovering some of the administrative costs of that process. It suffices the concern that I've had in the past about how long somebody is gone from retirement, and if they're gone for longer than 5 years, how we would treat them coming back as a new applicant. And if they come back in between that 5-year period, that essentially that they still would have to pay the existing renewal fee and provide, or at least attest to, that they have 30 hours of continuing competency pursuant to the continuing competency regulations. So again, I think with how long we've spent on this package and the time duration, this is for all intents and purposes, the closest that we're going to get to perfection. We still have to get out there and get public comment, and we may have an opportunity to look at this language again based on some of the feedback that we get from our stakeholders. But for the purposes of this meeting today, the motion that Heather gave you is the motion that council or that staff would seek also.
Board member comment, discussion, motion?
Alicia, I have a question for Jason. I see on the application to restore the retired license that there is not a requirement to show proof for the continuing competency credits. It's more like an attestation versus like submitting certificates. I'm just wondering why that was, decided upon versus proof of.
And you're referring to the second attachment, which is the application to return to active status?
Correct, yeah.
And so similar to a renewal process, we're just asking a licensee when they're returning to active status to attest under penalty of perjury that they do have the proof, but not to provide it to us unless it's asked for. The reason we did that for retired, I think it's more than anything for ease of use and our intended purposes. If that does become an issue or concern, they are subject to audit in the continuing compliance audits when we resume those. So if they're going to resume from retired to active and they attest under penalty that they do have that, we're going to approve it and get them back into the profession. We still have the recourse of the audit. If we were going to ask them to provide proof, we'd have to look at that proof first, assess whether it was sufficient to meet that of the regulation requirements before we approved it. And that is kind of an unnecessary barrier. We don't even do that for existing licensees who are just moving from one renewal period to another.
Okay.
Does that help?
That is helpful. Only because they've probably been out of practice for a while. I figured, it might be good to demonstrate that they've taken at least some refreshers before jumping back in. But I understand the burden it would put on the licensee, so I agree.
And at the same time, when we do return to audits, we're able to control that percentage of audits, and there's room for conversation at that point to include what percentage of retired, folks returning from retired to active might we do at a higher percentage level.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Katerina. Other board member discussion, questions, motion? Okay, with that, I guess I will move using the proposed language prepared by regulatory attorney Heather Hoganson. So motions by myself, Alicia Urbina Amon. Is there a second?
I'll second. It's Dale Armstrong.
Thank you, Dale. Second by Dale. Any further board discussion?
Just one addition. As part of that motion, just for clarity's sake, what we're asking is for the board to adopt the proposed language. Importantly for staff is the two forms are going to be incorporated by reference, and what we're asking you to adopt essentially is just the content of the forms, the formatting of the forms. And all I'm saying is, while they're not perfect right now or pretty right now, that would be under the EO directive of non-substantive technical changes. So you might see like we like our forms to be a little bit prettier than that, so give us some time.
So on the return to restore license application, in section B, the mandatory conviction and license disclosure questions, those are still okay to put on the application?
Yeah, because those similar to the renewal also.
Okay. Yes. All right, any further board discussion? And moderator, can you please facilitate public comment?
The question and answer box is available for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type comment into the question and answer box and send it to all participants, and we will call on you as soon as possible. When prompted, please unmute yourself. Seeing no comments, would you like me to close the option?
Yes, please, thank you. Okay, we have a motion by myself and a second by Dale Armstrong. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Alicia Benaman.
Aye.
Dale Armstrong.
Aye.
Jesus Dominguez.
Aye.
Daniel Drummer. Daniel Drummer is absent. Katarina Ellaby.
Aye.
Jonathan Irvin. Tanya McMillan. Oh, thank you.
Aye.
Tanya McMillan.
Aye.
6-0, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your work on that. Thank you, Heather, for your work
Thank
on
you.
that. And so, do we want to go back to item 12B, Jason, or is there anything to?
So 12B is what we were touching on while
Yeah.
Heather had audio difficulties. We had this on the agenda in case, through the process of the review of the disciplinary guidelines, there were any issues that needed to come back, and we don't have any.
You don't have any.
So they're not really there for discussion and possible board action because it looks like things are, smooth sailing at this point.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we're done with 12. So the regs, right?
We have everything we need.
Okay, and it looks like it's time to go into our quarterly report. So shall we start with agenda item 13, admin services?
Yes, so I think we have Kenneth Neese, who is the analyst assigned to budgets in the admin program. If we can promote him and unmute him, he can start.
Can everybody hear me?
We can.
Okay. Morning, Madam President, board members, staff, and stakeholders. My name is Kenneth Neese, the board's budget liaison. I will be presenting or reporting on budgets, specifically quarter 4. I'll try to be brief. I also want to take time to thank the budget office and our budget analyst, Sarah Hinkle, for all their assistance. On June 29th, 2020, the board was required to allocate 1 full-time position to the contact tracing program. Now, the contact tracing program ended on June 30th of this year. So from June 29th, 2020 through June 30th of this year, the board has expended $104,000 in labor costs that were allocated for that one application analyst to handle contact tracing. So for Q4, the board expended $18,281 in total staff salaries handling COVID-19 issues, inquiries, or assistance, etc., for fiscal year 2021. And from June 29th, 2020 through June 30th of 2021, the board has, for that whole year, pretty much, the board has expended $215,309 in labor costs, dealing again with COVID-19 inquiries, issues, assistance. Out of that, $2,111 was expended on PPE equipment, supplies, hand sanitizers, face masks, cleaning supplies for desks, things of that nature. Now, as far as the expenditures go, the board has expended a total for Q4, $1,355,808 for fiscal year 2021, which is around $599,000 decrease over Q4 of last fiscal year. PTBC expended $5,277,288, which is around $29,000 over fiscal year 1920 expenditures.
Hey, Ken,
now, as far as any questions?
Yeah, before we go any farther, I think the president might have a question about the COVID expenses.
Oh,
yeah, I'm
sure.
sorry, Ken. The salary for the contact tracing, was that a set salary by DCA? Or, did all of those people doing that particular job get paid the same, or is that just whatever the salary would be for that person here?
Well, it's based on, so the DCA, the budget office, has a pretty much a matrix on how they, with all the different benefits, everything included, and how many hours specific individuals spent on COVID-19 related issues. We would enter them in the spreadsheet that the budget office gave to us, and it pretty much enters in the, pretty much adds up all the different costs for that position, that employee, with what they make, what their salary is, benefits included, and however many hours they've allocated towards COVID-19 issues. Now, I do report to them weekly. It's called it's a COVID-19 drill. So every week I send to Sarah Hinkle, our budget analyst, I send her all the hours for each employee that has allocated the hours to COVID-19 related issues.
Okay.
But it's fairly typical for a single position authority. In the beginning of the contact tracing program, we were asked to either provide an SSA or AGPA level class employee to participate. And the mandate at the time was 5% of your existing staff. Well, we're small enough that 2 doesn't really necessarily represent 5%, it's a little bit over. We're more like 4.3, and so we were lucky to just get by with 2.5%, and we sent 1 employee over. But that is typically what we would have paid him for a 40-hour week for all the time he was serving there. He's still working for us. He's just doing their workload.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he was a higher classification, obviously the rate would have went up, and in some instances where they were actually accepting office technicians, the rate could have been lower. But that's that one designated employee specific salary for that period of time.
Okay, that helps.
And I don't remember. I know Kenneth and I were talking about this last week, but do we know if there's a potential for those costs to be reimbursed by the state?
So I did ask Sarah. She's going to get back to me, and in next report, I can definitely, what were my findings, I can definitely let you know.
So one of the open-ended items that at the close of the contact tracing program, which actually some of it's still operational, when they said, essentially, congratulations, you're going to be receiving your employee back, there was a statement made that given the state's fiscal health, and you would probably get your costs back. But that's the last we've heard of it. We're still waiting to hear what that actually looks like. So with us, that $100 and something thousand that we've expended during the contact tracing, there is a potential, a possibility that we might get it back from the state and reimburse us for his services.
Okay. Well, that would be nice. Okay. I think I'll save my other questions for when we go through the spreadsheet then.
Okay. And as far as revenues go, the board collected $1,088,734 in Q4 of this fiscal year, which is around $19,777 increase over last fiscal year. As of June 30th, 2021, the board collected $6,358,000, which is $941, sorry. Which is a $36,661 decrease over last fiscal year. Now, as far as the fund goes, fund condition, as previously reported, while the board's fund is considered healthy, we strive to have a double-digit reserve to avoid, any unanticipated expenditures or economic uncertainties. Also, it's, to have those funds, it's to ask for resources or requests, the board must display a healthy fund balance to the budget office and the Department of Finance. Also, October of every year, the budget office works on our revenue projections, and also right now it's kind of the time frame where they build the budgets for all bureaus and boards. Typically, the budget office takes the board's fund balance, divides it by the budgeted expenditure projections for next year, which is the matrix the budget office uses to gauge the condition of the board's fund. When the budget office builds the ongoing budget, they always do it. It's an incremental. And it's built upon the previous year's budget. Therefore, it continues to grow slightly every year, roughly around 3% annually. And this is based on the budget office's budget drills. And that concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Yes, this is Alicia again. In your first paragraph under expenditures, the last sentence says, year to date, PTBC has expended $5,277,000, which is 28,000 increase over. So is that $5 million figure fiscal year 2021?
Yeah, the fiscal year of $5,277,000. That's for fiscal year 2021.
Okay, and does that include moving expenses too?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. In fact, most of the move was paid for in a previous fiscal year anyway, using our funds. So there's no outstanding balances or anything that you need to worry about. We actually achieved quite a bit of cost savings in the move and in the equipping of the new space. But we are, while we're in September, we're really talking about end of the year data for, of 2021.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of 4 months later, we're talking about it. It's almost by necessity, because what we're actually talking about right now are still not actual numbers. We're still waiting on the bookkeepers at DCA and budgets to finalize and reconcile what we call month 13, or the final year. And I think we might have gotten it within the last day or two, but it's just the timing of the materials and when they go out. Some of the materials that you see right now are projections, but we're confident in the numbers that we're providing.
Thank you. Board member, questions, comments on budget?
one more just kind of point of context. The materials that you're also provided in the expenditure report, the graphs, the charts, the Excel spreadsheets that are line by line.
Yeah.
I have to give credit to Ken because he's trying to achieve something that's unachievable, right? With the transition from CalSTARS to Fiscal, we want the materials to have the same format, have the same feel, so that it's still easy for you as members to understand.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, the categorization of any kind of one expense now falls sometimes in a completely different other line item. And so we want the format to be the same,
Yeah.
but we are essentially trying to cram, you know, a square peg into a round hole, at least for this transition period. We anticipate in this new fiscal year, so at the next board meeting in December, the materials that we'll provide to you will have a slightly different look, but we won't be constrained by trying to fit them into that old format so that it's still consistent with the previous 2 quarters that were non-fiscal related.
Yeah. Or previous 2 fiscal years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so thank you for that. That's what does that apply to the report, the expenditure report? That's the 3-year milestone, why we might see a 0 in one category and then a 0 in another category somewhere else?
In some instances, yes, right? So, but zeros so in the expenditures report for the 3 fiscal years, sometimes there's actually a true 0, right? But a lot of that can be just the transition of CalSTARS to Fiscal information. So as an example, under postage for fiscal year 1920, you see a 0.
Right.
Those monies are probably somewhere realized in another line item because of the categorization.
Okay. All right.
For members, in the specificity and the granular detail of the reports, it's a little inconsistent, but I would just kind of hope that the bottom line budget aspect of these reports provides the members solace that, yeah, everything's okay.
Okay. Is there, on that same report, is there an easy explanation for why the OIS pro rata seems to fluctuate?
So within the OIS pro rata, technology also includes first-time costs, but also maintenance costs. And so we still have lingering from 2 previous fiscal years, first-time costs for Breeze, and then ongoing costs, but changing from the downstairs location to the upstairs location, the purchase of new equipment, OIS maintaining it, creating a new ADF and a network room, and all of those kind of things are contributing factors to those.
So those would be different then, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think in the next meetings materials, when we're able to kind of show you what Fiscal really more, you know, Fiscal fresh kind of looks like compared to trying to use it over, you know, a fiscal year period where Fiscal wasn't implemented, you'll be able to see that a little bit more clearly.
Other board member comments and questions for Ken or Jason? And I do have another question on agenda book page 63, the pie chart on the top. 62%, is that delinquent licensure?
Oh, for the, is it the exams?
Q4 revenue.
That's how it reads, but I think that number has got a couple extra digits in it.
What are those numbers? What are those numbers after the colon in the legend?
So the actual revenue under license renewal for Q4, I think it's just, some of it's displaced by delinquent licensure fees. So there'll be no time, it's not possible to collect more delinquent than regular license fees.
Uh-huh.
So we'll have to look into that. That's a typo or an error in the data.
Maybe mixed, reversed or something.
Yeah, even reverse would be a little bit out of whack because with every, delinquent payment that we receive a full renewal payment with it.
Okay. So then those numbers after the colon is that dollar amount?
They're supposed to be dollars and thousands, but that's why I think that the formula we'll have to look at the conversion to see what happened.
Okay. Thank you. Other board member comments, questions? I do appreciate the 3-year comparison. Kind of nice to see and track the changes, whether it's consistent or up and down depending on the category. It's just a nice visual to compare.
Yeah, we try to provide that at the close of every fiscal year.
I like it. Okay, hearing no further board discussion, moderator, can you please facilitate public comment?
The Q&A box is now available. If you would like to make a comment, please type comment into the Q&A box and send it to all participants. We will answer you as quickly as possible. When prompted, please unmute yourself. Seeing no comments, would you like me to close the option?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Madam President?
Yes.
Just one last comment and kind of a shameless plug, opportune in preparation for our next sunset planning session. And since we're talking about money, that we're projecting a healthy fund, and we have conservative projections that show our fund condition dissipating over the next couple of years. As members might be aware of, participating in the last go-around, we're at our statutory caps right now for fees. So one of the things that we might, identify as an issue in sunset is asking the legislature to either one of two plans. One is just extend the cap so that we can, pursue a regulatory fee increase at such time as is appropriate, or a second, pursue the fee increase as part of the sunset. So just something to keep in mind for conversation to start in October and then hopefully finish for our report in January.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And outreach report?
Good afternoon. My name is April Beauchamp, and I'm the Communication and Education Analyst within the Administrative Services Unit, and I will be presenting the outreach report. So for the website, in Q4, the PTBC had 38,600 web hits through its homepage that resulted in a 1% increase in traffic. The area with the highest increase was the Consumers tab. For the year to date, the website traffic has decreased by 6%, and then when looking at the 3-year milestone, we can see a 29% decrease in traffic from fiscal year 2018-19 to our current year 2020-21. For Facebook in Q4, 10,798 people accessed the Facebook page, resulting in a 40% decrease in traffic. For the year to date, Facebook traffic has decreased by 31%, and then with the 3-year milestone, we can see a 46% decrease. The reasons for the traffic decreasing, again, are attributed to the current pandemic. And then also looking at current trends, we have seen changes in Facebook usage, especially by the younger demographics. We are currently looking at and working on using other social media platforms to reach our stakeholders. We've noticed an increase in Instagram, for example. We've had an increase in followers, and then even TikTok's becoming a really big thing right now. So we are looking into those different platforms and utilizing those as well. We already are using Instagram, like I said, but more so. For the current social media platforms that we do use, which do include Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, our social media followers have increased this fiscal year by 14%. And then the most exciting part of the outreach report to me is the school presentations. This quarter 4, the PTBC provided virtual outreach presentations to 9 programs. This fiscal year, the PTBC has virtually provided training on the laws and regs and the application process to a total of 25 PT and PTA programs in California. So when the strategic plan was first put into place, we had 32 PT and PTA programs. Our goal at the time was to visit and reach each of those programs by the end of the strategic plan. Since then, there have been more programs added, and they have been more CAPT accredited programs, and there's more also coming. As of now, we have presented to 28 out of the 32 programs we originally set out to visit by the end of the strategic plan. And then out of the 36 programs that we currently have, we have been to 30 of them. So I am more than confident that we will reach our original goal of visiting those original 32 programs by the end of the strategic plan. We did do a Q&A recently with Cpta on continuing competency, and we do look forward to having more of those types of outreach presentations with them in the future. Those are in the works. And then another exciting note just to let you guys know about is we are currently in the works on revamping the new PTBC website. So work on that has started. We've been working with the DCA internet team, and that is should be hopefully coming out soon within a couple months, but I just want to let you guys know we are in the process of that, and yep, that's coming soon. So do any members have any questions regarding the outreach report?
Hi, April, it's Alicia.
Hi, Alicia.
What will the timeline be on the website completion? Or do we even know that? Is that just a work in progress until it's done, or is there usually an amount of time that it's finished in?
I couldn't give you an exact month and timeline it'll be done, but it usually takes a couple months. So it's soon, hopefully really, really soon, but I don't want to give an exact time frame because I'm not exactly sure at this point.
Yeah, thank you. That's okay. That kind of gives me at least an idea. I didn't know if it'd be like a year or, you know, that kind of thing.
It'll be before a year.
Okay.
So April's being kind. She was purposely instructed to not give any kind of date of when we would complete it by. So I'll take the heat on that one a little bit. We've been working back and forth with the web designers at DCA's team. A lot of that is going to be contingent upon our staff and how much time we can contribute to getting that new website up and launched, and just the complexity of it. So one of the things that we're doing is, from the old template to the new template, is trying to incorporate some kind of more modernization, better delivery of information, things that we've seen in other areas of private websites or government websites that we think, wow, we'd really like to have that.
Yeah.
Can we even pull it off? So no promised ETA. Expectations that have been expressed from PTBC to DCA is getting this done before the end of the year. And of course they say, yeah, it just depends on how complex, you know, of a website you want to build. So, and like I said, I think we want to build a pretty complex website, you know, that's content rich and feature packed and that kind of thing. So I guess I've kind of cinched myself out. I want to do it before the end of the year, and we'll see how it works.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think content rich is fantastic. Of course, myself being somewhat technically challenged, ease of use.
Exactly.
Yeah. I noticed in the agenda materials when I was reading it, there was somewhere that referred to the PT military resources was on the homepage of the website. So I went to the website, and I'm slow, I admit it. But I looked everywhere, and I'm like, I can't find it. And finally, at the bottom on the right, I saw it. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with, and I know it's going to be good. So thank you for working on that. And also just want to thank staff in April, your coordination of all of the presentations that are occurring at all of the programs. Again, I think if we have better informed licensees, that trickles down to our consumers. So sometimes it's hard to do outreach specifically to consumers, but we can get to them through our licensees, I'm hopeful. So 30 out of 35 or 30 out of 36 is pretty darn good. So kudos to you and all staff for hitting that mark so far.
Thank you.
If I could piggyback on Alicia's comments, I'm having a weird moment where back when I started on the board, there was a travel restriction. And so the outreach program kind of was not up and running the way that it is now. And it's weird that COVID helped us identify this efficiency that reaching out to them virtually is now sort of the standard, and our numbers are as high as they've probably ever been. So just wanted to make that observation and commend you for, like Alicia said, coordinating all of that must be a task.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd really like to thank Katarina for saying that, because at the time I was here to experience that travel restriction. But I will just say, we offered to do them remotely during that time. COVID is an interesting thing, right? It's made it necessary for everyone. At the time where we said, well, we couldn't travel, but we're willing to call in and do a web Zoom, and they were like, nah, if you can't come in person, we're not interested. But now with the global pandemic, and we're willing to come in person, and they're like, no, could you really call in? Because we can't, the students aren't even allowed on campus. So yeah, it's an interesting time. It's weird how this has kind of helped us in a weird way.
Yeah. Thank you, Katarina. Any other board comments, questions on outreach? I would like to just invite you, Jason, to maybe give a short report on the Cpta presentation that you gave. I know April did mention it, but it sounds like it was a big success, and it sounds like there is interest in having more of that, and I'm just interested in other outreach programs or presentations that we can give to even other groups, outside of the association, to larger organizations and such.
Sure. We did do a continuing competency briefing, if you will, with the membership of Cpta. I think we had about 80 or 90 participants online, of which a good majority asked questions and engaged. We gave a basic presentation of what the continuing competency requirements are, alternate pathways, traditional pathways, defined what those were, just to kind of, bring clarity to everyone. And, it was good in the sense that we got to kind of hash out some of the misnomers, the things that people think mean something but don't necessarily, or just that, the continuing competency regs themselves have a lot of flexibility provided to the licensee in them, where we're not looking for just online courses. We're really looking for engagement. And the task force that created those regulations really had that in mind when they created the alternate pathways. We will give you credit for just about anything a licensee will do that they use to engage in their profession, including, attending this board meeting as an example. So, but from what we heard back from Cpta is that it did go very well. We got to see a lot of the feedback and the comments that were provided in the reviews back to Cpta. Not all of them glaring, but a good majority of them very positive. And I think it was a selling point for Cpta to say, yeah, let's try to do this again. They offered a quarterly schedule of us collaborating and providing content. I don't know that we're ready to do it quarterly just yet, but I think twice a year, and we can probably do, something where we touch continuing competency a couple more times over the next 2 or 3 years, and then alternate, whatever the trend happens to be at the time. it's actually an opportunity for us and for staff to identify, it would be really nice to let the public know and let consumers know subject A. And so we'll say, okay, we'll schedule that with CPTA for that particular period of time. At some point, my goal is to get to that quarterly presentation with CPTA. Outside entities, yeah, I think, we're trying to kind of find buy-in from some larger healthcare institutions, Kaiser, Sutter, UC Davis, UCLA. We've done a couple of those things in the past, but they were kind of just trial hit and miss, kind of who you knew and get your foot in the door. All of them successful. So we're hoping that we can kind of make a regular thing of those too. Only one caveat, as I would say, and kind of what Katerina Ellaby was kind of mentioning, is COVID has really allowed for this delivery because it's virtual. If we were to try to do all of these things traveling to all the schools, it would be really difficult given the resources we have right now. So taking on CPTA, taking on, the Kaisers of the world, the Sutters of the world, it's ultimately our goal, but we're going to have to take baby steps on the way there, until we grow the program enough that we're good at the delivery, we're efficient with the delivery, and we have enough staff to do it and be in two places at one time.
Thank you, Jason. Other staff comment or questions? Okay, hearing none, I will ask the moderator to please facilitate public comment on outreach.
All right, the question and answer box is now available. If you would like to make a comment, please type comment into the box and send it to all participants. We will answer your comment as quickly as possible. When prompted, please unmute yourself. Seeing no comments, would you like me to close the question and answer option?
Yes, please, thank you. Agenda item number 14, application services.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Sarah Conley, I'm the manager of the Application, License Maintenance, and Continuing Competency Services Programs. To shorten that up, we can just say licensing program. I will start with application services, and I'll just go through some of the updates included in the briefing paper, and I'll just expand on those points. Not necessarily in order, because I want to start with welcoming, as Jason said earlier, welcoming Monet Dyson to the applications team. She did fill the vacant intake position, and so we're very excited to have her. The other update I wanted to give as far as our team is as mentioned in the budget report, we do have Paul Harrison back. He's an applications analyst that was assigned to contact tracing, so we are happy to have him back as well. Let's see. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the update to the application, the online application. I'm very excited to talk about this. This project has been in the works for literally years. And so we just finally implemented it in August. And what this update is, it's not really going to be noticeable to the applicants themselves because nothing is changing as far as the format of Breeze. So when an applicant walks through an application online, the field's going to be the same. A lot of the questions are going to be the same. They might just be reorganized a little bit. Where this is really going to, where this really made a change was in the backside on our end, on staff's end. And I can give you an example of how one of the improvements that this new online application is made for us. Our system was originally developed with a two-part process in mind. So what that means is like the applicant would apply for examination. So they would send, apply, and then we'd make them eligible to sit for the exam, and then stop, and then apply for licensure. And a lot of boards do this two-part process. Our board historically has done all of it in one process, but the system was built to reflect this two-part process. So we have two separate transactions to keep track of this application process. So you have documents and information in two different places, and that is not efficient for trying to retrieve information, for uploading information, tracking, communicating with the applicants. So this system update has taken those two transactions and put them into one. So we have all of the records, all the information, everything in one place. The other thing is that it has added additional information so that we can better communicate with applicants and providing them status updates on their Breeze account. One thing that I know I said the applicants won't see a huge change, but they will see that there is now also one type of application on Breeze. So there used to be multiple application types for a U.S. graduate or foreign graduate. Now there's just two applications, one for PT and one for PTA. So we're really just trying to simplify the process, streamline it, increase communication, increase the clarity of communication with the applicants. So this has been a really big change, a really exciting change. We are not going to probably see the effects of and the impact of the program for a while because it was just implemented. So we're still clearing out the old transactions, and nothing's changing with the old transactions as that are in progress. We will continue to process those through their life cycle, and then we'll move on to the new ones, the new applications. Is there any questions about this new application, online application?
So for the PT application, it's one application, and then somewhere in that application, the person would indicate whether they're a CAPT graduate or a non-CAPT graduate or a military, et cetera.
Exactly. So when an applicant goes into Breeze to apply for a license, there's going to be questions presented to them, and depending on how the applicant responds to each question, the system will develop an application specific to their method of application. So if they already hold a license out of state, it'll depending on if they say yes, then the application will include questions about their out-of-state license. If they're a non-CAPT accredited graduate, then there'll be information about their education and experience outside of the U.S. So yes, it will all be tailored to each individual applicant, even though there's only one application for PT and one application for PTA.
I have a tricky question.
Yes.
My tricky question is, what if it is a foreign trained applicant who marks the application as an endorsement from another state?
You can do both. So they would say yes, that they have not graduated. They would indicate that they have not graduated from an accredited program, and then they would also indicate that they have a license out of state. So both criteria would apply, and they would answer those questions accordingly and include that information accordingly.
Okay, that's a good answer because I was thinking they would do one or the other, so that's good. Yeah. Thank you, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Any other board member questions or comments about applications?
The other thing that this transaction will do, we have been reporting performance measures for a couple of years, and because we are always trying to improve our processes to increase efficiency and better serve our applicants, our performance measures didn't always truly reflect our process and how we get through our workload and our timelines. With this single transaction, we'll better be able to track the lifetime and the processing time of an application from beginning to end. So that will be really helpful too. So I'm looking forward to next year when we see the performance measure data and see how long it is truly taking us to process a transaction or an application.
Fantastic.
All right, so if there's no other questions on that, I will move on to the military webpage. So we have been working on increasing services for members of the military. Part of that has been to designate as a staff person specifically to assist members of the military, whether it be through an initial application or for someone who's already licensed who may need a renewal waiver for being deployed. So all of that would be dealt with by one person. So we've done that. But in addition, we have added a web page to the website, and it has all of the military information specific to our board. DCA has a military website, but it was general and it was addressed really for all the boards, and then they directed each licensee to their own board for specific information. Well, now we have that information on our own website, and that also includes an email so that if people go to that, if applicants or licensees go to that web page, there's an email link right there, and they can send an email that goes directly to our designated military staff member, and they can get a response right away. And this person, the person that's designated to handle military matters, is also processing endorsement initial applications. So, and I know that was talked about at the last board meeting about how we separated out the out-of-state endorsement applicants from the new grad applicants, so that they're not in the same line, because they do have a different, they have to meet different criteria. Like the endorsement applicants don't have to sit for the national exam. So now they're separated. And then a lot of times our endorsement applicants, the highest military applicant volume will be in endorsement applicants, because it's like spouses of members of the military who already have a license out of state. And so they're trying to, come to California and get everything figured out. So it seemed to be good to put that all at one desk. And it seems to be going well. Any questions on military or endorsement or that desk or position in general?
When did the military website page become active?
It was just the like August 1st, I believe. It was just the beginning, we're working on the end of last fiscal year, beginning of this fiscal year. So just recently.
Yeah, I don't know that there's anything we can compare it to, but it'd just be interesting to see how many hits that page would get. And I think it's a really nice resource.
Okay, if there's no questions on that, I'll move on to the data. The applications received, overall, there has been a slight decrease. And I think that we are still going to see some impact from COVID. I think I don't see our application volume really going down. I think a lot of this is impacted, like I said, by COVID and people trying to just figure things out beyond. There might be impacts beyond just our processes or anything like that. So we've seen a slight decrease in applications received, and you'll see that really in the 3-year report. It's really the non-accredited, so foreign applicants, and the endorsement applicants. The graduates of accredited programs, so those programs within the U.S. PT has remained about the same, and PTA is increasing. So it's those, we're not seeing it so much as new U.S. grads. It's mainly the endorsement and foreign. I know right now we still are in the state of emergency, so licensees who do have a license out of state, they can apply to work here under the state of emergency and not have a license, and that's through the emergency medical services through California. And so that might be affecting our endorsement numbers. So maybe if otherwise those endorsement applicants or those out-of-state licensees would apply for a license, but they don't have to right now. So we'll have to watch that and see if that changes with the state of emergency when that's lifted. But we do have an increase in licenses issued. Now, I do want to point out The licenses issued number, it is, I do have a correction. The number is actually 2496 for this current fiscal year. So I apologize for the error. I'm not sure what happened, but that's the actual number is 2496. So we do have an increase in the number of licenses issued, and I think it's about a 6% increase. And I think that's reflective of the some of our efforts that we've tried, our process improvement efforts that we've done, just even without implementing any system changes or anything, just trying to use the system we have and look at our internal processes, even with teleworking, that we have been able to increase our output. So that's exciting, and hopefully we'll continue to go in that direction. And then I don't have anything else for the data, but included in the report is also last meeting we talked about the increased workload with new PTA programs, and kind of what that looks like, the size of cohorts and things like that. And so we did do a survey out to all of the programs, including the new programs. We have at the time that the data was compiled, we have about a 60% response rate. So those responses are included. It's on page 80 of the agenda materials. And so it's just a breakdown of the schools that responded, with the cohort size that they said they had, and then when they anticipated their graduation dates. So you can see how that workload distributes throughout the year. And it's pretty consistent with what we've dealt with so nothing's changed, I guess. That our summer months, our quarter 4 is the highest volume, and then it goes quarter 1, quarter 2, and then quarter 3 is not even on here because no one indicated that they have graduation dates during that time. I think we only had one of the new schools respond. That was Pima Medical Institute. So we'll continue to reach out to the schools and try and get excuse me, this information, but we just wanted to share with you what we were able to get so far.
So, Sarah, was this a voluntary survey? Obviously, you just invited them and.
Yes.
Okay. How important is this information to your unit, and how important is it to get complete data? And what you have right there before you enough to inform some of your decisions, or how are you using the data?
So it is very helpful for staff to plan for the workload, when it's going to come in, and when applications are going to come in. It is helpful because and knowing not only when people are going to graduate, but also when schools. So it kind of gives an idea of when we're going to receive documentation, like their education verification, which that can drive things like PTLA status. But it's helpful to know when applicants are going to actually submit their applications. Some programs can tell us, some programs leave it to the students completely, and they don't have information on that. But the more information we can get on when we're going to get applications, when we're going to get program completion documentation, that all helps us figure out our workload and how we can address it. And if we need to, like if we're going to get a high PTA volume, we can redirect resources to PTAs at one point, at that point, or PTAs. And so you can move things around to address whatever workload is higher at that point. And we all know we already prepare for the fixed testing dates. It's really busy around when we get the scores back, because we get a lot of hundreds of scores at one time. So we try to we plan for that. So all the information is helpful in figuring out our workload and how we're going to address it.
Thank you.
Now, one thing I do want to note, eligibility is not as impacted by this, because we process eligibility based upon the school confirming graduation. So that's through our test vendor, which is the Federation of State Boards of Physical Therapy. So that's the school actually confirms a student's graduation directly with the Federation of State Boards of Physical Therapy. We don't have to be an in-between. So they do that directly, but what our role is that we make them eligible. So as long as the school confirms that a student is ready to graduate, then we will process their eligibility. And that is more, that comes in, it doesn't come in at like the fixed date testing where you have hundreds at a time. You may have like 30 or a cohort of 30 students, or even if it's like 80 students or 100 students, but it's it's more evenly distributed throughout the year, and we do that every day. And so that this data, as far as the application submission and when they're going to graduate, that is not the eligibility is not as impacted by all of this information. It's separate, and we do that every day. So it's two separate workloads: eligibility for the exam, and then the application for licensure. And they're handled separately. Do you have any questions on that? I hope that made sense.
It does make sense to me, but I don't know if the others are following. Any questions from the board members?
They must be following.
Yes.
And that concludes my applications report. So just if there's any questions overall with applications, if not, I'll go on to licensing. Okay. So I'm sorry.
And I just want to be a stickler and allow for public comment on applications. So if we could have the moderator please facilitate that.
You're muted.
The question and answer is now available for comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type comment into the question and answer box and send it to all participants. When called upon, please unmute yourself. Seeing no comments, would you like me to close the option?
Yes, please. Thank you, David. Okay, Sarah, agenda item 15.
Okay, so for licensing, I don't have a lot of updates. It's running pretty status quo. But one thing I did want to point out is, as previously reported, we did eliminate the pocket license. We are still getting a lot of inquiries on that, and I think that's you'll see in the duplicate request data. There's still a high number of requests for duplicates, even though we don't issue the pocket license. And I know that there's a lot of confusion with that issue, and so PTs are still requesting duplicate wall certificates because they still believe that they need something. And so we're still working through that, and we're getting a lot of calls, so we try to address those questions as people call. We've done social media updates, the information's on the website, so we're really trying to help with that. But that that high number of PTs requesting duplicates is, I think, that the confusion with the pocket license and the wall certificate and what is and is not needed. So and then a few PTA duplicate requests are just carry over from before we implemented it. And so the PTAs don't get wall certificates, so they don't have anything that they can request. Otherwise, I don't have anything else to point out in licensing. Are there any questions?
Looks like It looks like licensees are catching on to renewing and changing their name and address online, so that's a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that data is indicative of the good majority of the ones that are do it that way, but we still have a good, contingent of our licensing group that has not told us that they've moved in the last 30 days, because on the enforcement side of things, that still creates difficulties that we find.
Other board member questions or comments on licensing or the report?
Real quick, Madam President, this is Jesus. Sarah, thank you so much for clarifying a few things in my mind. So, but just to make sure that I understand, yes, we do not issue any more pocket licenses. So when a PT licensee requests a duplicate, what we have available to them is a wall certificate. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Perfect. Okay. They should be
So that
looking at Breeze anyway.
exactly, and so the wall certificate is just going to be another wall certificate that's issued that is issued at initial licensure. So it's not going to have any dates or anything on it. It's just going to have the pretty certificate of initial licensure. So it's nice to have, but it's not going to have that pocket license information. That will need to be retrieved from on the Breeze online license verification.
Thank you. Yeah, mine's looking a bit yellowed. Going on 30 plus years.
So I think that there's a little nostalgia in having the original wall certificate that was issued to you. Having a duplicate of that is a great thing, but having that original, you only get the first one time. Just to touch on that though, so what Sarah was, speaking on the increase in duplicates, the scenario might play out like, a licensee who wants a wall certificate or a wallet certificate but never received one, may even be aware of the social media posts or heard the rumors or all of those things, still goes on to Breeze and sees that they can order a duplicate, not quite understanding that it's not a duplicate for a wallet certificate, it's a duplicate for a wall certificate, processes it, pays for it, receives it in the mail, and then all the while is now just realizing this isn't even what I was trying to do. I was trying to be slick and get another pocket license that you guys aren't giving me. I think we all knew in anticipation of this decision that there was going to be this growing pain, right? They can't request what is impossible to receive. If we're not providing it to them, their insurance companies, their employers, all of those things, it's going to be kind of a long, arduous transition. And I hear about it all the time. I get that a lot of questions and feedback in presentations and emails to my personal account, all of those kind of things. And after I explain it to them, a good majority of them are like, wow, that's like a really good idea. Could you call my employer and explain it to them? So a lot of the pressure isn't necessarily from the licensees, it's from the powers that be over those licensees.
Yeah, and they don't
Yes.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in a case of someone like Jesus or myself, who is a little more seasoned, if we were to order a duplicate license, would it say PTEC or would it say TTBC?
It would be current and it would have your signature on it.
Okay. Thank you.
It's a good question because I've only ever been asked that once before, and that was only after that person ordered a duplicate and it wasn't a duplicate of the original they received. They wanted that president's signature, and that's just not, we don't have the bandwidth or the storage capacity to provide you with a copy that's exact to the copy you received.
Any other board questions or comments regarding licensing? Okay, and so moderator, will you please facilitate public comment? Moderator, are you there?
My apologies. The question and answer icon box is now available. When please type comment into the comment box and send it to all participants. When prompted, please unmute yourself. Seeing no comments, would you like me to close the option?
Yes, please, thank you. Okay, continuing competency.
Okay, for continuing competency, the briefing paper does say that we were hoping or we were planning to resume activities on September 1st, but as Jason had shared earlier, we are still working, we still have those resources redirected to applications. The need was just there, and so unfortunately we haven't been able to resume continuing competency activities, but it's still on our radar and we're still moving, we're hoping to move in that direction. It's just going to be a matter of when we can get all of our resources where they need to be, and when we can move people back to continuing competency. And like Jason said earlier, the waivers kind of keep us from auditing licensees at this time. So it's just where our priorities lie, and right now it's with applications. So I don't have an update, a new update on continuing competency, but I do want to mention the continuing competency credit for attending a board meeting, since we are in the board meeting. So licensees can get continuing competency for attending a board meeting, including attending this WebEx, but it's really important. We do need licensees to put their full name, so first and last name as it would be on the license, as well as their email address that we have on file. That will help us match up the person tuning in to their record and get those licensees their credit for attending. And we are, so in keeping with that kind of resource issue we have with continuing competency, we are trying to get their certificates out for attending a board meeting, so that people have record that they did receive credit for attendance, but we are behind. So if you haven't received a certificate for board meeting attendance, and you did log in and we have your information, you will be receiving a certificate. If you did attend a WebEx and you haven't received a certificate, you can, while we're still working on it, feel free to reach out to us. You can email the board. There's a licensee email. It's pt@dca.ca.gov. That information is on the website. Also, our phone number, you can call us and we will get that out to you. But we are monitoring the webcast attendance so that people can, or licensees can get credit for attending the webcast meetings.
So Sarah, when a licensee shows up to a meeting, what exactly do they need to do? Do they chat in their information or the full name and email? What do they do?
So when the WebEx first comes up, you enter your name and email. So you need to put in there the full name it's on your license record, first and last name, and then the email address that we have on file, the board has on file. And then that way the board can pull that information from, we have a spreadsheet that gives us all the attendees for the meeting, and then we can connect with the licensee that way. If there's any information, like if the licensee has a different email and they didn't realize, we can resolve that matter. We'll get in touch with the licensee based on, we have to use the contact information that we have on our record, but we can still get those resolved. But we are just a little behind on getting those certificates out. But yeah, so all they have to do is put in their information and attend the meeting. I mean, if you log in, we can actually see if people log in and log out. So we'll see the length of attendance as well. So it would actually be putting forth a good effort to attend the meeting. That's how you can receive credit.
And Sarah, that applies for the professional members that are on the call as well?
The board members?
Yes.
Yes. all licenses.
So members should be expecting to receive certificates of their proof of attendance for their board meetings as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm glad.
So for continuing competency, Jason mentioned earlier, I mean, you're still like approving those who apply to be a, provider, or going through and weeding out some of the ones that you haven't heard from or what have you.
Yes. So if there's any like approval agencies we're still working with, there is an email address specifically for approval agencies. If any inquiries come in through email or phone, the analysts in the program will respond to them, address questions. There's a lot of questions about COVID and the waivers, and so they're addressing all of those. We're just not auditing at this time because of resources and because of the waiver. And then the other things we want to get into more when we can have the resources is the approval agency audits. So that's something that we really want to start working on more. But as far as like inquiries and approval agencies, we are still available, or the staff in the program are still available for that.
Thank you.
And just one final note before I just wrap up. It kind of goes back to applications, but because I'm covering all the programs, I know the board had requested an update on how our technology and processes are, just more information on what we do and how that impacts our workflow and our efficiency. So now that was one request. Another request was more information on our satisfaction survey results, which we send out to applicants and licensees. And there's also one for outreach, but that I'll let April do that one. But I do want to present that to the board, that information. I haven't lost sight of it. But we did have a lot of other things already covered at this particular meeting. So just in the future, we'll present that information. So if there's anything that you want, anything in addition to, or if you have a priority of something over the other, let me know.
Thank you, Sarah. So board members, anything else that you want to make a comment on or request for future reports? Okay, and moderator, can you please facilitate public comment on agenda item 16, continuing competency update?
We are now open for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type comment in the question and answer box and then unmute yourself when prompted. Seeing no comments, would you like me to close the option?
Yes, please. Thank you, David. Okay, agenda item 17, Consumer Protection Services update.
Hi, my name is Carol Phelps. I'm an analyst in the Consumer Protection Services Unit. I'm going to present our update for that program for you. I apologize, I don't have my video open right now. Technical difficulties. Please refer to the CPS statistics report attached to the board meeting materials, and you'll see the fiscal year 2021 performance measures specifics as compared to both fiscal year 1920, in addition to over the last 3 fiscal years. In general, these numbers can fluctuate greatly from year to year and are caused by a number of factors. For example, the statistics on this report reflect a lot of changes caused by the emergency and protective measures that have been implemented in the past year and a half, resulting in fewer complaints being received, and investigation cycle times increasing due in part to shutdowns and restrictions that have affected and delayed investigation efforts, such as site visits and in-person interviews. There was significant delay on those things in the last year. we can, I don't know if you want to pause right now, if you have any questions on those particular statistics, or we can save that for, I just have a couple more things to say as well.
Yes, Carol, this is Alicia. I'm looking at the first statistical report, and specifically when it says, I guess at the bottom, transmittals to Attorney General, you know, and it says intake only, pre-AG transmittal. I mean, that's representing our staff turnaround time, right?
Right. So the intake only, actually on the second page of that, there's some information on what each of those mean. So for intake only, this is the average number of days from the date the complaint was received to the date the complaint was assigned for investigation. And so that's, yes, that's internal. And that's for us, we receive the complaint and how long does it take us to assign it to an analyst for investigation.
Yeah. So
That's the
good.
4A.
That looks really good. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks to all the staff. Those are good numbers. And then on the second page, under total orders aging / final decision, can you help me digest that information in that table, please?
So this is all AG cases that resulted in either, you know, that were sent to the Attorney Generals for discipline. And this is total aging. So from the time the case was received until the time a final decision was made. And this breaks it down by how many days these cases were. So for example, in Q4 of fiscal year 2021, there were no cases that made it all the way through the AG process in less than 180 days. One case that was completed in Q4 took somewhere between 181 days and 364 days. 4 cases took somewhere between 1 and 2 years to complete. 1 case took between 2 and 3 years, and there were 3 cases that aged more than 3 years from the time the investigation started, the board received the complaint, until the time a final decision was reached in the case.
Okay. Yes, thank you. That does make sense. I was just hoping I read that right. So, I mean, in general, these cases take time.
Right. Yeah. I think it's conversationally easier to explain it that way than to look at a column of numbers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's important to note when it comes to that case aging, though. And just taking the worst case scenario, those cases that are 3 years or longer, and you've seen this kind of increase, a 7% increase over this time last year. If you take the 1 to 2 and the 2 to 3 and you compile them together, that's a significant decrease in the amount of time. So it really kind of shows that there's a small handful of cases that statistically really can skew the numbers. Well, whether it's the egregiousness or the complexity, the length of the investigation, the participation by the respondent or respondent's counsel, all of those kind of things can add up to a very lengthy period of time. And some of it is just, some of it's exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, but these numbers are not all that different from what we saw, before the pandemic. The idea is that we want to be able to deal with these cases start to finish. I mean, the ultimate intent and goal is within 180 days to 365 days. And I think that's a great goal to have, but I think we all have to kind of acknowledge that, yeah, we're going to aim for that, but there are going to be some cases, and rightly so, that are going to take more time than that because of the complexity, because of the evidentiary issues, because of due process for the licensee that is being accused or there's an allegation against. This is the one performance measure that really kind of sticks out, but this is also the one performance measure that I'm willing to engage and defend. I mean, it's very easy, to sit down with a legislative staffer or a stakeholder and be able to explain in the totality, that's not an issue for this board.
Yeah.
And not that it ever was, but it's also improved over time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, I'll continue on then, if there's no more questions on that. Okay, as I heard was reported in the last board meeting, we are now able to securely submit information and documents electronically to both the Division of Investigation and to the Attorney General's office. This saves both the board resources in that staff no longer have to spend time preparing, copying, and physically mailing documents to these offices, but also in that submittals are sent and received immediately, and we can confirm receipt immediately. And it's no longer being delayed by physical mail delivery time. So we are on board with doing that. We've been doing that for a few months now, and I think it's running really smoothly. And it's secure, and it's a great addition to our program. It makes things a lot easier. But also like to congratulate and recognize Vincent Azar, who we're lucky enough to have as an Associate Governmental Program Analyst within the CPS program. He was recently recognized by DCA as a gold level recipient of their Superior Accomplishment Award for 2021. He received this award for his work in responding to the changes that came with teleworking. He developed automated functions in Qbert, which is the board's reporting software, and in Breeze that have significantly reduced processing times and cut down on U.S. mail costs for the board. He's also worked with DCA's Breeze and Office of Information Services teams in problem solving for department-wide issues, including coming up with solutions for DCA's licensing and enforcement work groups. So Vincent was acknowledged. I think he received that award a month or two ago, and we've acknowledged him for that, but I just wanted to publicly acknowledge him and congratulate him for that. And that is all I have to report. If you have any questions, I'm available for that.
This is Tanya. I don't have a question, but congratulations to Vincent. That's great.
You know, I got to add to that just a little bit. That's an award that is actually provided by the director under director's signature, and actually comes with a financial reward. He actually got a bonus, which is not something we say in state service very often. So kudos to Vincent.
Well deserved.
Wow.
Congrats.
Congratulations, Vincent. And again, as I'm looking at agenda page, my eyes, I believe it's 90. You know, it's evident in some of these measures that the cases are hitting the desks of staff and getting turned around and getting sent to where they need to be next. It's evident in the data in this chart. So kudos to staff in your unit for your hard work and for getting this work done and getting it up to the next step.
Thank you, Alicia. I agree. We have really good staff in our unit, and they're really diligent about watching, performance measure times and trying to turn things around as quickly as we can as we receive them. So thank you for acknowledging that.
Yes, absolutely. And any further board member discussion or comments? And moderator, can you please facilitate public comment for agenda item 17, Consumer Protection Services update?
The question and answer feature is now available. If you would like to make a comment, please type comment into the box and send it to all participants. When prompted, please unmute yourself. Seeing no comments, would you like me to close the option?
Yes, please. Thank you. Agenda item 18, Probation Monitoring Services.
Hello, board members. Can you hear me?
Hi, Monty.
Hi, good afternoon. All right, so I'm giving the report on probation monitoring as usual for the fourth quarter of the 2021 fiscal year. Let's see, at the end of the quarter, there were 57 licensees on probation, 41 in the state, 16 out-of-state tolling. There were 2 licensees placed on probation in the quarter. 3 licensees completed probation in the quarter. Of the 41 not tolling, 13 were enrolled and participating in the board's drug and alcohol recovery monitoring program, equaling about 30% of the licensees on probation. The probation monitoring unit continues to operate utilizing Microsoft Teams during these times of COVID and no travel. All probationers seem to be adjusting to having the probation monitoring interviews via video conference, and things are running smoothly for the most part. There's a few people who have had internet issues where they are, or technical difficulties, but for the most part, everybody's doing these interviews via Teams now. There haven't been any disruptions to biological fluid testing, and participants are continuing to participate in 12-step programs and health support groups via video conference as well, via Zoom, I believe. As you can see by the 3-year comparison, over the last 3 years, there's been quite a dramatic decrease in the number of licensees being placed on probation per year. The number of licensees has decreased from 22 down to 9 and then back up to 12. More than likely, the reason for the reductions entering probation, or the reduction for the number of licensees entering probation, is COVID, less cases being processed and making their way to me. There was only, for instance, 1 licensee placed on probation for the first 6 months of 2020. And also the enactment of Assembly Bill 2138, July 1st, 2020 may have something to do with it as well. It's pretty much the end of my report, unless anyone has any questions.
I'd like to just invite any comment from board members regarding any communication that we get from Monty that where he needs either our vote or our input, and he has sent a couple out with some really good that's my PT hat on, board member education in there. And I found it quite helpful. Was wondering if, for feedback from Monty, if board members thought the same.
Madam President, this is Jesus. I'll echo that. Lonnie, I appreciate your emails that say just for information, no action required. That's always nice to know. Just so I appreciate being kept in the loop, and also reminded that it's not anything that I as a board member need to act on. And the other comment, Monty, is you already answered my question. I was just curious to get your take on whether or not biologic fluid testing has been difficult for folks on probation during this time. It doesn't seem like you think it is, right?
I haven't heard any complaints, especially lately. Maybe at the beginning, people were kind of worried about it. But the testing sites seem to have done a good job with that. They would have people check in and then wait for their turn to test in their car or something, so they weren't in small waiting rooms or crowded spaces. So it seemed to have worked out, especially for those places where they took, appointments, so people, weren't congregating in small areas.
Great. Thank you, Monty.
Mm-hmm.
Other board member comments? Hearing none, moderator, can you please open up public comment?
The question and answer feature is now open for public comments. If you would like to make a comment, please type comment into the box and send it to all participants. When prompted, please unmute yourself. Seeing no comments, would you like me to close the feature?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you, Monty.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too. Agenda item number 19 is public comment on items not on the agenda. So we invite anyone participating or attending the meeting who would like to bring up a possible agenda item for a future meeting. This is your chance, and I'll ask the moderator to please facilitate public comment.
Once again, the question and answer box is available. If you would like to make a comment, please type comment into the box and send it to all participants. When prompted, please unmute yourself. Seeing no comments, would you like me to close the feature?
Yes, please. Thank you. And agenda item number 20, agenda items for future meetings. Are there any board members who have items that they'd like to have considered for future meetings?
Staff has added to the list the idea of a presentation of services by the DCA regulations unit.
Thank you very much.
So we'll find out about that.
Thank you very much. Anything else, board members? Okay, and I think for fairness, I'll have the moderator also open this one back up to public comment.
Once again, we are open for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type comment into the question and answer box and send it to all participants. When prompted, please unmute yourself. Seeing no comments, would you like me to close the feature?
Yes, please. Thank you, David. And so our final agenda item is closed session, and we do have one item, I believe, to discuss. So I think we will go into closed session and not come back into the WebEx and just jot down the time of adjournment at that time. So thank you all very much for coming, and we'll take about a 10-minute break and get set up for closed session. Thank you very much.
This is the moderator. We're going to discontinue recording.